So we are here in Paris with Ikea's Chief Sustainability Officer, Steve Howard. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. So why is it important for Ikea to be here in Paris this week?
It's a historic moment in Paris, and we've been working for, if you think it goes all the way back to Kyoto, around climate change with even before then actually, 1992, the first UN Convention on Climate Change. And there's been some action, but we know there's been far too little. So all of the government leaders are in here, but with business leaders and civil society leaders to say it's time to get a global deal that makes a better future for everybody. So we're here to show our support for that. And France is a really important country for us. We've got many stores, many co-workers, many customers here in France as well.
You gave a TED talk last year in which you said sustainability has gone from a nice to do to a must do for business. What does that mean?
Sustainability used to be, it was like an afterthought on an annual report or corporate social responsibility. If you think there's resource scarcity, food security, where do future resources come from? Climate change is a massive issue where we need to decarbonize our economy. So that's really at the core of what you do. And then in a complex world, how do you act responsibly as a business? How are you a great place for people to work? How do you have ethical value chains? These are mission critical for the 21st century businesses. And you've got to embrace the agenda and use it to drive innovation and to drive opportunity.
So is it a competitive advantage?
It's a competitive advantage, but I have said, and I will continue to say, you can always construct a business case to do the right thing. So why would you possibly do anything else? Now, unfortunately, some businesses today still have a business case to do the wrong thing. But we, as a business that is values driven, we know our customers care, our co-workers care, we'll do our very best to do the right thing whenever we can.
So there's been a big change since Copenhagen in the attitudes of business. Suddenly, they're all here, they're all, embracing the need to do something about climate change. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting. Copenhagen it's a different time, and business was the bad cop in Cope to some extent. There were progressive businesses, but mostly business was lobbying against change then. And I think business has stepped up now. It's time that we have, policy certainty from governments, and then we can have business innovation and investment. So we've seen large coalitions forming. There's a coalition called We Mean Business that stepped up, which I think has well over 200 major global businesses like Ikea, but also Nike and Mars, many different businesses from around the world that have all said, we're going to be serious in acting about climate change. We see it as the future for a good, prosperous society. We can have green growth, green jobs, green products, but we need policy action from government to deliver it.
You come from the world of NGOs. Why did you want to go work for Ikea?
I worked in an NGO called the Climate Group for a long time, and before that in WWF. And I'd advised lots of businesses on how to lead on climate change, and I thought it was time to see if you could do it in reality, as we say in Ikea. It's also, I think sustainability shouldn't be a premium for people. You've got to make it relevant for everybody. It should be in everybody's homes. In a world where we're going to have more and more people coming out of poverty, which is great, it puts more and more pressure on the planet unless we get it right. So sustainability's got to be every product. And if you think then what companies are well placed to do that, Ikea is. And I also said to our former CEO, if you're interested in being incrementally less bad, I'm the wrong guy. If you want to go for transformational and good, I'm the right guy. And rather than throwing me out of the door, he smiled at me and welcomed me in.
Because there must be, cases, of course, when sort of the need for profitability and profit to shareholders sort of goes against all the sustainability goals that you have.
I think in some sectors, then business is completely at odds with sustainability. There are some radical transformation is required. But for us, if you look, we can go through all the different parts of our business and come up with a sustainable case. So we've just taken all of our cotton, from regular cotton, lots of pesticides, lots of fertilizers, to better cotton or equivalent. All of the cotton in over 4 or 5 years we've transformed. We've looked at lighting. So 4 years ago we made the decision to stop selling CFLs and halogens, especially halogens, so energy hungry and short-lived. to go for LEDs, and LEDs are the next best thing to daylight. 1st of September this year, we only sold LEDs. We've gone for energy efficiency in the business, and we've saved more than 60 million euros since 2010. And we've invested in renewable energy. We've got wind farms in Sweden or in the US or Canada, 23 wind farms, nearly 800,000 solar panels installed. So we've taken energy from being a cost to a profit centre. And so I don't see it. I think if you lead from principles and values and say we're always going to be on the side of the customer, on the side of the many people, the people working in our value chain, and on the side of the planet, you can always nail it and get it right, or certainly we can in our business.
Even a company like Ikea, because Ikea is the company that made people buy, expect to buy bookshelves for €19 and then kind of throw them out after 2 years. Can that really be matched with sustainability?
I think there's something of a myth about throwaway consumerism, which is, for most people still have thin wallets, and 10, 15, 20 euros is a considered purchase. And so it's not to try. Let's not try.
You still
and
have some firms, moving firms that won't move IKEA furniture because they will break.
Find me them. No, we've actually got a quality strategy called Quality for Life, and we're obsessed about only having products we love. And we've been talking about durability that's fit for purpose. So, you have a mattress with a 25-year guarantee. I don't know how long you want to sleep on the same mattress, but then our job is to secure that can be recycled at the end of life and turned into something else. So we've been securing that for things like mattresses. And we're going through much more of our range, this sort of circular economy. So if we can make products that meet people's expectations, that are good form, good function, good quality, even if they're cheap, that just means more people can afford them. We're not pricing people into sitting on the floor. We're providing sustainable sofas or sustainable bookshelves made from renewable forests and with renewable energy. And then we make sure they can either be resold or repaired, remanufactured or recycled at the end of their life. That's our responsibility to do that.
But is the whole societal cost reflected in the price of an IKEA product?
We pay people fairly. We're increasingly using renewable energy. We've taken a massive stand for things like sustainable forestry.
Because you've been heavily criticised in the past for your, cutting down 600-year-old trees in Russia.
Yeah, that was a tiny NGO of 4 people who I don't think had wandered through the forest very often. It was FSC certified. It was Forest Stewardship Council certified in Russia.
Didn't India suspend your certification briefly last year?
They did, without following their own processes, and they reinstated it immediately afterwards, actually. And so it's complex, This is the reason why we like the Forest Stewardship Council, is because it reconciles the views of all different stakeholders, from IKEA to forest owners to Greenpeace and WWF. And everybody doesn't always agree, but that's healthy. You come around a standard. And this was in a part of Russia where you could say the standards were designed for secondary forests, more like Swedish forests. And actually there was some old growth forest there as well in that. And the standards need to be designed and developed. It's a dynamic process, but we've had a total 100% commitment to that. We've got 20 foresters working inside IKEA. We work with WWF, with the FSC and with others to promote more and more forests to be well managed. And however high the standards are set by the FSC, we will make sure that ourselves and our suppliers meet them.
But can't one say in some sense that your business model, you are outsourcing some of your energy costs to the consumers, because IKEA warehouses are always placed outside of town, you have to drive there, and the round trips that consumers make to an IKEA store, those do not show up in your sustainability report, or do they?
They do.
They do?
They do. We have a comprehensive carbon footprint. Actually, it's really complicated, this, but about 10% of it, you're absolutely right, about 10% of our total carbon footprint is customers' journeys to stores. So what we've said is we'll only build stores from now on where they have mass transit, and we've been already looking at mass transit solutions. So like our Brooklyn store in New York, there's a water taxi that comes across from the mainland. It's actually caused some sort of urban renewal as well, with a great public transit solution for people from Brooklyn. So we're looking, how can we help get mass transit in place, make it really easily available? And as we into sort of more multi-channel retailing, e-commerce, online shopping, we're also thinking through how can we get, it's something about the last mile, the last few kilometres, where that can be in a city environment and you don't want polluting vehicles then. So we've been breaking down transport solutions, saying where can we move to cleaner vehicles, where can we move to electric vehicles, where there are great mass transit solutions like water taxis or electric buses. And we're not there yet, but we're moving there with intent.
So the joke that people make about going to Ikea is that you go there to buy one thing and you come home with 20 things that you never thought you'd needed. Isn't that bad for sustainability? Are you thinking about doing something about that?
Telling people, asking people at the checkout, do you really want that? Well, no, we're a retailer, and you actually want to stimulate home furnishing interest. And if people go home with stuff that they then like and use and they're happy with, even if they didn't pre-plan it, I think that's fine. I think where we absolutely need to focus on is to make sure our business is 100% people and planet positive, to make sure we've got great jobs for people wherever they are in our value chain, to make sure we actually do things that are beneficial for the planet. And that's the stand we've taken. And if occasionally people go home with an item that they didn't consider, then okay, I think that's part of modern life, isn't it? It's the way we are as people. One example, we started selling solar panels in the UK and in the Netherlands and in Switzerland. We'll be expanding to more countries. And we did have some people come to one store and they were looking for towels and they left having ordered solar panels. But in the follow-up, they're really happy. It will halve their electricity. It will take 1-2 tons off their CO2 emissions, and it will be better than them putting their money pretty much anywhere else. So if that's an accidental purchase, we can do with some more of those.
So you source your materials in many of the countries that are very vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Has that affected your sort of commitment to this issue?
I think it's made it very real. I mean, we've seen it. I've already mentioned Brooklyn and New York, and Brooklyn, we had Hurricane Sandy come through there and it hit the community. It closed several of our stores on the East Coast. And people that were working, the co-workers working in the community, it took several months to recover, for those communities, sometimes longer than that. But then in other places we've seen cotton harvests and the farmers affected profoundly in South Asia. We've had stores elsewhere disrupted by flooding. So you can see the impacts. When you've got as a global business, you can see extreme weather is now, it's an everyday or every week reality somewhere. And it's the poorest communities that are the most hard hit. So it is sort of in the cotton farming fields of South Asia or elsewhere that people really bear the brunt of it, this extreme weather. We've only just seen the beginning of it as well.
So we have businesses increasingly calling for a global price on carbon. Is that a good idea?
I think it's a good idea, but it probably won't land there in practice. What we'll see is more and more pricing of carbon. If you've got to price pollution, punish pollution and put a price on it. And then you've got to provide sort of incentives to stimulate the things you want, like renewable energy. So at the moment, there's 3 times as much subsidy for fossil fuels as there is for renewables. So we're subsidizing pollution rather than subsidizing clean energy. And we've got to switch that round.
Thank you very much, Steve Howard. Thank you.
You're welcome.